Hello, and welcome to Fish Wrap TV, episode 14. Today is Friday, April 30th, 2021. I'm your host, Janie Hansen, along with Q Lair. We've got a sunny day here in Blue Earth, Minnesota. Planters are rolling along out in the fields. And here on Main Street, we'll be talking about corn prices and ethanol, drought in Brazil, soybeans and soy oil, crude, and those skyrocketing building materials, copper and lumber. Starting with corn, Q?
Well, I thought we were going to have kind of a consolidation week this week, and early in the week, the CME raised margins on corn, and it sort of took a little bit of steam out of the market. But today, it's shot up again with the news coming out of Brazil that the safrinha corn crop is under high stress right now down in Brazil and Parana and Mato Grosso states of Brazil, and what happened was that it pushed everything up to the limit today. Little quick note here: July D's corn. Remember we were talking about that?
Yep.
116 today. So it was trading at 80.90 last week, and put 26 cents on this week alone, just
Wow.
a spread. So when the guys who were trading it at 75, they look like heroes now. We thought, well, maybe they were wrong this time, but again, that's why they're the pros from Dover, and we ain't.
Yeah.
So
what is that spread usually? Like, is there a typical relationship?
the mean is about 20 over.
Okay.
So it's pretty much 15 under to 35, 40 over,
Okay.
maybe 50. But they really got into it this year.
Yeah, so 116 is really something.
It's something. I mean, I've seen it big before like this, but it's like we go back to what we were talking about last week. 4 or 5 times in my career, this sort of thing has happened where Gelady's gone over $1.
Yeah.
So they really got after it this week, and they just exacted some pain. And let's see, we're talking July corn 672, May corn heading into delivery had a 7 in front of it.
Wow.
Yeah, D's corn 556, D's 22 is 490. And D3 is 447. So, the market just keeps on going, and the tide is being lifted.
Yeah.
In the corn market. So, corn has been big news, and also ethanol. We can bring that up if everybody wants to take a look at this thing. This is the ethanol swap out of NYMEX, and look at that. That is really bad news if you're a blender and you don't have your corn on you. So, having to buy $6 corn instead of $4 corn for your grind is really going to turn out to have been a big mistake.
Yeah, that's a pain point for sure.
So, in other words, hedging is not only what we preach about with farmers, but a lot of these guys thought corn was just going to stay there forever with a 3 or 4 in front of it and didn't bother hedging, and now they're reaching.
Yeah. So, and then you said a big driver of this run up this week was the news from Brazil and the
Yes.
drought. Big drought intensifying in the southern part.
It's intensifying. This is probably the worst time for the safrinha crop, as it could be. So, and the funny thing is that we never knew anything was going on in South America 25, 30 years ago, and now it's like we're getting reports 2-3 times a day.
Yeah.
Through Twitter of these agronomy companies down there. So, data and everything coming at you is like 3 times larger than it was just 2-3 years ago. The data is coming at you to be a trader or a hedger or producer.
So how about soybeans?
Well, soybeans went to not necessarily the back of the bus, but they take a second chair to corn this week. But they got after it as well this week and ran some shorts in. Bean margins and bean oil margins were raised last night for close today. So as we head into May, we're going to be essentially about double the margins than we were back when corn was at 340 and beans were at 840.
Okay.
So, but they are as the margins go, above $3,000 a contract, you're beginning to see the real pros from Dover, strong hands, playing this game for keeps. And let's see here, July no beans, $1.90. So that's pretty hairy. July beans are $15.30. November beans $13.38. So pretty awesome.
Yeah.
If you're getting ready to hedge, and of course November 2022 is $12.18. 3 is $11.35. So you got a pretty board looking out there for if you're going to be growing corn and beans the next 4 or 5 years.
Well, yeah. And last year at this time, beans had a 9 in front of it, and we were thinking 8s.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
it's a big
And
difference.
the thing is, some of the big guns that I talked to on Twitter, there was a decent possibility with what was going on in Brazil and with the China ASF that we were going to see a 720 in beans. And so 840 looked pretty good there for a while. But this thing, of course, turned on a dime, and it's all about demand, of course, and weather, as it always is.
Yeah. So for both corn and soybeans, from the producer standpoint, it's really looking at those out years now, and comparing that to your cost of production, and seeing how much you want to lock in and put on your cash flow for those years.
Exactly, because if you think about it, back in just 1 year ago today, as we headed into May, you were looking at 840 beans all the way across. So you were looking at 860 all the way out of 2023. So people say, well, you missed a lot of this big move in 2020 crop. But the thing is that now we got 21, 2, 3, and 4. So you've got like $3 a bushel across 4 years, which is a nice little $12 run up.
Yeah. So if you want to put out 10%, 20%,
Exactly.
a little bit more, just to get that number on your balance sheet.
Yep, on your dance card, as we say. But yes, balance sheet's the same diff.
Yep. So anything with soybean oil?
Well, soybean oil continues to be the driver. They put a 920-ish out in canola up in Canada. And I mean, somebody has got a problem. And there is just no home. Yeah. And we got some late plantings of the canola crop in Europe and France, and what that means is that this is going to be a hairy year. And Stats Canada came out with their production numbers this week, and it was 1 million acres less than what we expected.
Really?
Yes. So even with these prices, it's not coming in. So I don't know what these farmers are thinking, because they planted 92, 93 million acres when we had $9 beans, and we're showing them 14, 15, 13, and their acreage is down. So, this is not economics 101 the way I was taught it. But we will see how this game plays out. There was a whisper that there's 5 million more acres of corn and beans being planted right now in the United States.
Okay.
That was than what the USDA reported. So, my thoughts about that 90, 91 bean number is probably going to be right at the end. But there's been a boatload of pain. Yeah. to get to the right number, as you well know, it's not a matter of being right. Is can you hang on and take the heat?
Yeah.
If while you're waiting on it to be so, another timing situation. But this market is just taking no prisoners.
So, then moving on to crude, what's happening in the crude oil markets?
Well, we got the crude oil chart here and CL there. And as you can see, it's just setting for 60, 62, 63.5, back down to 62.3 today. And with ethanol skyrocketing, something has to give. But, we will see when the earthquake happens. But pressure is building inside the system. And, what the crude oil chart is telling you is that things are stalling economically in spite of what you're hearing.
Okay.
And the money is coming out of Washington, maybe is starting to, diminishing returns, I guess is what we call it, with the money that they're using. So, we're going to keep a real good close eye on that crude oil chart.
So, and then copper and lumber.
Well, our good old inflation story. We got a copper chart here. We haven't shown you one of those, but you can take a look at that. It's doubled this year. And between that and our next friend, lumber, everything's doubled last year, except, lumber has gone up 600%. And today it hit 1,500. Wow. They tacked it up the limit and then traded it back off. But 15, I mean, this thing is a beast. And even though it's a small open interest, they are just punishing people because, people keep standing in front of this train and say, this, it's got to stop here. And then 200 later, they're blowing their brains out.
So, well, anything else for this week?
Well, I promised I'd be talking about wheat every day that we get together. So, spring wheat with the drought continues to run. Minneapolis CEP, CEP. Yeah, CEP is now 35 over Chicago July. And those were unders, 2 months ago.
Oh, wow.
So it's accelerating, and, the alarm bells aren't going off, but yet, it's a, don't go to sleep on this thing because spring wheat will tear you up if you're wrong. So it's going to be a very, very interesting week. We have WASDE coming up on, I believe it's the 10th. I have to apologize because it's just got to be the 10th, a week from Monday.
Okay.
And then, of course, then we'll see. But, plantings are running behind in corn. We were expecting, 20, 22% planted. We only got 14 this year. So we're running behind the 5-year average and last year even. So I guess this cold snap has got everybody sitting in the barn, but this weather now, we're going to start, like you said, we're going to see some people out there, running machines.
Yeah, they're
pretty
moving.
much. Yeah. From here all the way down, I-35 to Kansas City, it should be pretty busy. And of course, all the way to Chicago on the I-90. So it's going to be an interesting week. It's going to be brutal. We will see when the fever breaks in lumber and in copper, because copper is heading close to being an all-time high. They're even talking about putting a 5 in front of it, which is never done before. And that's $5 a pound. You say that's not so much, but you see how much we use.
Yes.
Yes. And
that makes a
how much is
difference.
in your house, how much is in your pipes, your plumbing, et cetera, not to mention its uses in, electronics. So we got an interesting, next few months coming up, and just stay tuned.
Yep. So thanks for tuning into Fish Wrap TV. We'll see you next week.